Welcome back to the Bitcoin Zodiac, where we view Bitcoin through the lens of financial astrology. Here, we examine generational cycles over short-term noise. As we move into June, the sky feels restless and alive. There is a sense that something is shifting beneath the surface, asking us to loosen our grip on old stories and trust where life is leading us next. The month begins with a full moon in Sagittarius, literally a once-in-a-blue moon moment, bringing light to the beliefs, visions, and futures we have been building toward over the last 6 months. The Sagittarius full moon arrives like a beam of light cutting through fog. Sagittarius is the seeker, the philosopher, the part of us that longs to understand the bigger picture. Under this full moon, something becomes clear. You may find yourself questioning a belief you've carried for years. A plan may reveal itself as no longer aligned with who you are becoming. A truth you've been avoiding may finally ask for your attention. This full moon is not interested in certainty, it is interested in honesty. Notice where you have been settling for a version of your life that feels too small. Notice where fear has disguised itself as practicality. Sagittarius reminds us that growth often begins the moment we stop pretending we already know the answer. There is an invitation here to look farther ahead and trust that your life is capable of expanding beyond its current shape. A few days later, on June 9th, Venus and Jupiter meet in Cancer. This is one of the softer, more nourishing alignments of the year. Cancer reminds us that abundance is not only measured by what we achieve, it is found in what makes us feel safe, supported, and connected. Venus and Jupiter together amplify gratitude, generosity, and emotional fulfillment. You may feel more drawn toward home, family, close friendships, or the people who feel like home. There is an opportunity to receive love more fully. Notice where life is offering support. Notice where you have been carrying everything alone. This transit reminds us that softness can be a source of strength. Then on June 12th, Uranus forms a square to the Lunar Nodes. This is a turning point transit. The Lunar Nodes speak to our collective path of growth, while Uranus represents awakening, disruption, and breakthrough. When these energies meet, life can deliver unexpected invitations to evolve. Something may arrive that changes your perspective, a conversation, a realization, a sudden shift in plans, a new opportunity you did not see coming. While uncertainty can feel uncomfortable, Uranus often liberates us from situations that have become too small for our future. The challenge is remaining open enough to recognize change as a messenger rather than a threat. Also on June 12th, Mercury enters its pre-retrograde shadow in Cancer. Think of this as the beginning of a review period. Themes connected to communication, family dynamics, emotional patterns, and past conversations may begin surfacing now. You don't need to solve everything immediately. Simply notice what is asking for your attention. Pay attention to repeated topics, recurring memories, and unfinished conversations. They may become important guides throughout Mercury's retrograde journey. The new moon in Gemini arrives on June 14th and opens a fresh chapter. Gemini is curious, adaptable, and eager to learn. After the emotional depth of Cancer and the unpredictability of Uranus, this new moon encourages experimentation. You do not need to have every answer. You only need to be willing to ask better questions. This new moon supports writing, learning, teaching, networking, and exploring new ideas. It invites movement where things have become stagnant. It reminds us that growth often begins with a shift in perspective. If the full moon in Sagittarius revealed a truth, the Gemini new moon asks what you will do with it. What conversations need to happen? What ideas deserve your attention? What future is quietly trying to introduce itself? June carries an interesting balance between comfort and change. Cancer reminds us to stay connected to what nourishes us. Uranus encourages us to remain open to surprise. Gemini asks us to stay curious enough to follow where life is leading. Trust that you do not need to know the entire path. The next step is enough. Now let's look at this astrological window specifically through the lens of Bitcoin. While many of the broader themes overlap collectively, there are several important energetic shifts uniquely influencing Bitcoin during this period. The first half of June carries an interesting contrast. There is genuine support for Bitcoin's long-term maturation, yet several transits suggest periods where perception may temporarily drift away from reality. The market appears to be moving through a phase where conviction is tested, narratives evolve,
I'm pausing this episode for just a moment to share with you one of our partners, the Sculpt Society. I'm obsessed with TSS, created by celebrity trainer Megan Roop. It's not just another fitness app, it's the most fun you'll ever have working out. You'll find sculpt, strength, and dance cardio all in one super accessible method that actually works. Whether you have 10 minutes or 50, want low impact sculpting or full body dance cardio, the Sculpt Society has you covered. Inside the app, you'll find over 900 on demand workouts and weekly live classes, plus curated programs that meet you wherever you are, beginner, advanced, or even pre or postnatal. There's no complicated choreography, no guilt, just movement that makes you feel confident and strong in your own skin. You can stream from any device anywhere in the world and even download classes to work out offline. It doesn't matter whether you're in your living room or in a hotel room. So if you've been waiting for a sign to get back into your body and feel good, this is it. Click on the link in the description box and join the Sculpt Society to start your 7-day free trial today. You'll feel the difference after just one class. Let's get back into the episode.
And participants are asked to distinguish between sustainable growth and emotional reaction. For long-term Bitcoin investors, this period looks less like a final destination and more like a checkpoint. The Sagittarius Full Moon shines a light on belief systems. In financial markets, Sagittarius often corresponds with collective narratives, global adoption themes, future projections, and the stories investors tell themselves about where an asset is ultimately headed. Full moons bring culmination and visibility. Information that has been developing beneath the surface often becomes easier to see. For Bitcoin, this lunation may illuminate larger questions surrounding global adoption, sovereign money, institutional participation, and the role of digital assets within the emerging monetary system. Market participants should be more focused on the long-term vision rather than short-term price movement. This full moon can also exaggerate optimism. Sagittarius naturally seeks expansion and possibility. While this can inspire confidence, it can also encourage investors to overlook practical considerations. The invitation here is to remain inspired while staying grounded. Also on May 31st, a transiting Jupiter forms a semisquare to Bitcoin's natal moon, highlighting a period where market sentiment, investor emotions, and collective confidence may become amplified, potentially increasing optimism, speculation, and emotional reactions to market developments. Jupiter's frictional aspect to Bitcoin's natal moon increases emotional volume. The moon in a financial assets chart often reflects collective sentiment, public engagement, and emotional participation from the broader market. Jupiter expands whatever it touches. As a result, market reactions may become amplified during this period. Bullish news may appear more significant than it truly is. Fearful headlines may generate stronger responses than usual. This transit often coincides with heightened enthusiasm, increased speculation, and larger emotional swings among retail participants. For investors, this is a useful reminder that emotional conviction and objective reality are not always the same thing. Strong feelings alone are rarely sufficient justification for major financial decisions. On June 4th, a transiting Jupiter forms a sesquisquare to Bitcoin's natal Mars, creating a restless and expansive energy that can encourage bold action, increase speculation, and a stronger appetite for risk within the market. Mars represents action, momentum, competition, and the drive to move forward. Jupiter's sesquisquare creates a restless energy that can encourage market participants to act before conditions are fully mature. This transit may correspond with increased volatility, aggressive positioning, leveraged speculation, or heightened confidence among traders. The market may feel eager to accelerate, yet acceleration is not always the same thing as progress. When Jupiter challenges Mars, enthusiasm can exceed discipline. Participants may become convinced they need immediate exposure, immediate action, or immediate results. Long-term investors may benefit from resisting the urge to chase price and instead focus on strategic positioning. On June 9th, Venus conjoins Jupiter in Cancer, bringing an expansive and supportive energy that highlights themes of value, security, abundance, and emotional trust. This is one of the more supportive alignments of the month. Venus governs value, wealth, attraction, and capital flow. Jupiter expands growth and opportunity. Together in Cancer, attention turns towards security, preservation, protection, and emotional trust. Within the Bitcoin ecosystem, this transit may support growing confidence around custody, long-term holding strategies, family wealth preservation, inheritance planning, and sovereign ownership. So Cancer is less interested in speculation than security. Rather than encouraging reckless risk-taking, this alignment supports building stronger foundations. Capital may gravitate toward assets perceived as protective during periods of uncertainty. Also on June 9th, the transiting Jupiter forms a harmonious trine to Bitcoin's natal Saturn, supporting steady growth, stronger foundations, and increasing institutional confidence. This is one of the most constructive Bitcoin transits of the period. Saturn governs structure, durability, maturity, and long-term legitimacy. A Jupiter-Saturn trine often allows growth to occur without sacrificing stability. In Bitcoin's evolution, this transit can correspond with developments that strengthen institutional confidence, regulatory clarity, infrastructure growth, and broader acceptance among traditional financial participants. The market may begin recognizing progress that has been quietly developing for months or years. This aspect favors patient builders over short-term speculators.
I'm briefly interrupting this episode to speak to you about one of our partners, Ritual Supplements, and in particular, Ritual Stress Relief. It's the first of its kind supplement powered by BioSeries technology.
It supports the idea that Bitcoin's strongest advances occur when expansion is supported by solid foundations. On June 12th, Uranus squares the lunar nodes, a pivotal collective transit that can coincide with unexpected shifts in direction, technological breakthroughs, and disruptive events that challenge established paths, accelerating changes that shape the future of society, markets, and innovation. This is a collective turning point transit. The lunar nodes describe humanity's evolutionary direction. Uranus represents disruption, innovation, awakening, and technological breakthroughs. When Uranus forms a square to the nodes, the future often arrives faster than expected. For Bitcoin, this transit feels particularly relevant. Bitcoin itself embodies many Uranian themes: decentralization, technological innovation, disruption of established systems, and new forms of sovereignty. Unexpected developments surrounding digital infrastructure, monetary systems, communication networks, or technological adoption may emerge around this period. Markets may experience moments of uncertainty as participants adjust to changing realities. Yet Uranus often disrupts stagnant structures precisely because they have outlived their usefulness. The larger story here appears connected to the ongoing transition from legacy financial systems toward more digitally native forms of value exchange. On June 12th, transiting Chiron forms a sesquisquare to Bitcoin's natal sun, bringing attention to areas where the Bitcoin ecosystem may still face criticism, vulnerability, or growing pains. Chiron often reveals unresolved vulnerabilities before healing can occur. Bitcoin's natal sun represents its core identity and purpose. This transit may draw attention toward perceived weaknesses, criticisms, or unresolved challenges within the Bitcoin ecosystem. Topics such as scalability, regulation, energy consumption, security concerns, or broader public misunderstandings could temporarily receive increased attention. The purpose of Chiron is not destruction. It reveals where refinement is still needed. Markets may become more sensitive to criticism during this period, yet constructive challenges can ultimately strengthen long-term resilience. Also, on June 12th, Mercury enters its pre-retrograde shadow, beginning a review period around communication, information, and decision-making, while bringing attention to themes that may become more significant during Mercury's upcoming retrograde cycle. The pre-shadow phase often introduces themes that become more significant during the retrograde itself. In Cancer, attention turns toward memory, history, security, emotional narratives, and collective trust. Investors may notice old market themes resurfacing. Previous concerns could reappear. Past discussions and disputes within the Bitcoin community itself may return to the headlines. Conversations surrounding custody, security, self-sovereignty, and investor protection could become increasingly important. This is not necessarily a period for rushing major decisions. It is often more useful to observe emerging themes and allow additional information to arrive. On June 13th, transiting Jupiter forms a challenging square to Bitcoin's natal Neptune, highlighting a period when optimism, speculation, and big visions may become amplified. This is arguably the most important cautionary transit of the period. Neptune governs dreams, ideals, imagination, confusion, projection, and collective myths. Jupiter magnifies whatever it touches. When these planets form a challenging aspect, narratives can become larger than reality. Market participants may become vulnerable to unrealistic expectations, exaggerated forecasts, speculative excitement, or persuasive stories that lack sufficient substance. This transit can correspond with periods where sentiment outruns fundamentals. At its highest expression, Jupiter-Neptune expands vision and possibility. At its lowest expression, it encourages wishful thinking. Investors may benefit from asking a simple question: what evidence supports the narrative I currently believe? The answer may provide valuable clarity. On June 14th, a new moon in Gemini opens a fresh cycle focused on communication, information, learning, and the exchange of ideas, encouraging curiosity, adaptability, and new perspectives within both the broader financial markets and the evolving Bitcoin ecosystem. The Gemini New Moon opens a fresh chapter around communication, information, learning, and connectivity. Gemini governs networks, it governs information flow, it governs the exchange of ideas. These themes are deeply relevant to Bitcoin. New information, new conversations, new technological developments, and new narratives may begin emerging around this lunation. Gemini encourages curiosity rather than certainty. The strongest opportunities may belong to those willing to remain flexible, continue learning, and adapt as new information becomes available. For Bitcoin's long-term evolution, this new moon feels less concerned with immediate price action and more focused on the continued spread of knowledge. Adoption begins with understanding. Understanding begins with conversation. The dominant theme of this period is discernment. Jupiter provides several supportive aspects that continue strengthening Bitcoin's long-term foundations. At the same time, Jupiter's challenging contacts with the Moon, Mars, and Neptune suggest that sentiment may periodically become inflated, reactive, or overly confident. The market may oscillate between genuine progress and exaggerated expectations. This period favors conviction built upon research rather than emotion. Bitcoin itself, the larger trajectory, remains focused on maturation, legitimacy, and integration into a changing financial world. The question during this cycle is not whether the story is advancing. The question is whether market participants can separate the signal from the noise while it unfolds. Enjoy the freedom expanding energy of this full moon. Until next time, peace, love, and Bitcoin.